Not sure.
I think so.
Preston Johnson is here, though, this hour. Been a long time, been a few weeks. Preston Johnson from Guru Elite DFS. What is your title at Guru Elite DFS?
I guess Director of Sports Betting Media and Content would be the full title.
Wow, that's a great title.
It's like 17 words long. So
Director of Sports
I'm just going to
Media,
get like a
betting
like initials for each of the words, and that'll be my thing.
Director of Sports Betting, Media and Content.
Yeah.
DSB MC. Very nice.
There it is.
Appreciate you being here. We're going to talk all things NBA with you. Love talking NBA with you from all kinds of angles. You have a more macro thing you want to talk about where it comes.
I really do. I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. I'm curious what your thoughts are on it as well.
I definitely got some thoughts on the way the NBA is going. Obviously, Game 1 of the NBA Finals is tonight in Oakland, in the town, as they like to call it in the East Bay. A little Bay Area talk right there. People don't know if they've never lived in the Bay Area. The city means it's San Francisco, and then the town, sort of in response, it's Oakland.
Is everyone else just Oakland?
Yeah, the city was very snobby in San Francisco. The city.
Well, because all the jerseys say the city, or the hats that you get say the city, so they kind of stole that then.
Well, yeah, but the Warriors are headed to San Francisco, by the way, in a couple years too. Anyway,
I think that's pretty official.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it is.
Okay,
sorry, Oakland. Yeah, it's funny in Oakland. The one team that's going to stay is the one team that's been rumored to go the most, which is the Athletics.
The Athletics.
But the Warriors, they have I'm telling you, that crowd in Oakland, not just in this iteration of the Warriors, but even in the Baron Davis days, where they had the biggest upset over the Mavericks in modern NBA history in terms of a postseason series. The crowd in Oakland is fabulous. Well before that, the Run TMC days, the Rick Barry days, decades before that, just one of the great fan bases. And they will be out in full effect tonight, 12.5 points. Warriors, 12.5 point favorites in Game 1 over the Cleveland Cavaliers. And, what's been interesting is where this series price has gone. Jorge, you were talking offset. Let's put it up on the screen. A little bit of a separation now. We might not be ready to have the graphic, but I'll tell you what it is. A little bit of a separation now in what the prices are on the Warriors. Warriors, South Point Hotel Casino, there it is, are at minus 900. You'll see a minus 900 over at MGM. You'll see a minus 950 at Station. Golden Nugget, minus 1,000. Will Hill, minus 1,000. The Westgate, minus 1,100. Caesars, minus 1,400. So from minus 900 here in town at its lowest to minus 1,400 at Caesars, and you think to yourself, wait, what are the Cavs coming back? Maybe there's a way to play this.
Scout bet or something, yeah.
Cavaliers plus 800 at Caesars. So that's a straddle to behold, minus 1,400 to plus 800. Here at the South Point, minus 900 with Cleveland plus 600 coming back.
Do you think South Point's lowest? Maybe you've talked about this already with some of the guys here because they took all of that Cleveland action. I think it was after Game 5 when they were down 2-3. They have a bunch of 15-1 liability on the Cavs. So maybe they're offering the best series price on Golden State to try to get some minus 900 action. I'm not sure if you've talked about it.
I am going to go ahead and say yes.
Okay.
It is always informed by the shop's action. Minus 900, plus 600 here at the South Point Hotel Casino. But it is interesting that Caesars the other way, right? So Caesars minus 1,400, one might assume the opposite, right?
They're trying to hope that someone out there thinks 8-1's the best Cavs price. And
they're begging you for Cavs money.
My number was like minus 924 true line, which is like not enough value to lay 900. But I was interested to see that South Point was basically the only shop that was around where my number was.
You're a Lakers fan, wearing a Dodgers hat right now.
That's right.
A little LA happening with Preston. Historically, previous 3 seasons, Cavs Warriors. Previous 3 iterations of what is now a 4-in-a-row situation between the Cavaliers and the Warriors. Last year, Warriors were minus 300. Year before that, minus 220 in their respective series against the Cavaliers. Warriors won the first in 6, lost in 7 in the second, 1 in 5 last year. So this is off the charts compared to that. Historically, modern-day NBA history. It is 3 different versions of the early century Lakers that are the only teams that come close again to a line like this. The Lakers team that lost to the Pistons in 5 in 2004, that team was minus 700 on the line against the Pistons. And the Lakers with the Wallace brothers, not really, but Rasheed and Ben Wallace, Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Tayshaun Prince, got them in 5.
I remember, this is totally off topic, but my parents made me go work a summer in Jackson Hole, Wyoming at like a high adventure camp.
Nice.
And that was the summer that this.
I love that you say made me.
Oh, absolutely. There was zero chance I was choosing to do that.
Yeah.
I think I was 15 or 16 years old.
You're like, this sounds awful.
Yeah. So I wasn't betting at the time. I had no idea the Lakers were minus 700. I just remember thinking after 2 games that we actually, we meaning the Lakers, would actually lose the series, and they ended up losing, and they lost in 5 as a 7-1 favorite. I didn't actually realize it was that big.
Well, there's 2 that are actually even closer.
I know the Sixers, Allen Iverson one was massive, but
right. So then the next closest was the Lakers against the Nets 2 years before that. 2002 was minus 750, and the Lakers swept the Nets. I guess that's Jason Kidd and Kenyon Martin, probably.
yeah, Richard Jefferson
Yeah. Oh, geez, Richard Jefferson. My goodness.
when he could dunk and was pretty good.
And then in 2000, now the database that I was looking at was a sportoddshistory.com. They go back to the 2001-2002 season. The year before that was the Lakers against the Sixers, which you alluded to, which was against the Allen Iverson-led Sixers. And that is the most recent time where we've had a line bigger than this one. And that was the Lakers at minus 2,000 against the Sixers. And by the way, in game 1, they were favored by 12.5 points, the exact same spread as we have today.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
The Sixers came out and won game 1.
I remember that.
And then the Lakers.
And I think it was the Lakers had actually won 12 straight, too.
Correct.
And it was, they could sweep the entire NBA playoffs, and then they lost game 1 at home as a big favorite.
So I say all that to ask you then, just from your memory on those series and how you feel today right now. We have plenty of time to talk about this series and other basketball matters. This is against LeBron James. Those were, in all 3 cases, and obviously people underrated Detroit tremendously. Stephen A. still screaming about Stanislav Medvedenko. Don't get me started again. But do you think the notion that this series is in that group, that's a little interesting. No, against LeBron?
I think it is just because it is LeBron James. I think that's a fair answer to anything now. Well, it's LeBron. That's just it. You have to just take it for what it is. I will say if Love is injured and not playing because he's concussed
right,
the entire series, that's a thing. If Iguodala's out the entire series and Love is playing the entire series, and that kind of balances it more to where I don't think this is on the same level as some of these other mismatched series. Have you ever looked at like the roster Allen Iverson played with?
Yeah.
Like it's very similar to like what we're seeing. Imagine Love not playing because he has a concussion. And you basically have like the George Hill, Tristan Thompson, Jeff Green. He played, it was like Tony Kukoc, Jermaine Jones, Matt Geiger, Tyronn Hill, Rajah Bell, Aaron McKee, Rashawn McLeod, I think was like a shooter, one of the first like shooters ever.
Tony Kukoc played
Dikembe
on that team.
Mutombo,
I had
Theo
forgotten
Ratliff.
about that.
That was his team, and he took them to the NBA Finals. I think Eric Snow was actually the starting point guard.
Right.
Anyways, it's very similar to basically the LeBron Cavs team without Kevin Love, but it's Allen Iverson instead of LeBron. So no matter what, LeBron still wins that kind of matchup. I think when it comes down to the teams as far as help goes, we're very similar. But LeBron's obviously a much more impactful player than Iverson ever was.
Yeah. Let's flash up these props here for Preston to chime in on. And yes, we'll get to hockey. I promise you. Caps, Golden Knights next.
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Well, let me just say this as a sort of parenthetical aside. It's funny to me how Vegas Golden Knights fans, when they lose, it's all about them not playing well and the Caps' sort of good fortune. But when it's the Knights who did basically the same thing in other games, it's all about the Knights. Confirmation bias is very much in full effect.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And I don't really follow hockey a ton, but I've obviously followed them here, and especially in the playoffs. But there were a few of those games where you look at the advanced, like projected, expected goals scored after the games. I think it was against the Jets, where the Jets were winning games like 3.9 to 1.5 in the expected goals, but losing the games 2-4. And the Knights were winning these games they probably shouldn't have won. So to say that like they didn't play well last night, they haven't played well in a lot of games. They've actually come out on top.
That's right.
I will give you that there is kind of a notion, and especially here and locally.
Yeah, locally is what I'm saying. Because and again, Knights fans, it's a great team. You're a great team, but when Holtby makes a save,
that save
it's
was
not
sick.
Lucky if Fleury's making the same save and you're calling
He's
it awesome.
the best of all time.
Yeah, like just stop it. But we'll get to that coming up. By the way, Allen Iverson, game 1 against the Lakers in 2000 in the 2001 NBA Finals, he dropped 48 points on the Shaq Kobe Lakers in a 107-101 overtime win. 48.
Was that when he was like stepping over Tron Lue?
That's
Probably.
correct. That's exactly right.
That was his
I'm
moment,
sorry.
his shining moment.
Is that you, Teron, beneath me? All right. As far as this series is concerned, though, Preston, let me give you the generic 4, 5, 6, or 7 outcomes here at the South Point Hotel Casino. The sweep at plus 190. 5 games, which is where most people anecdotally seem to think it's going to land. Warriors in 5, plus 140, but this is just 5 generic at plus 140. 6 games, plus 375. 7 games, plus 425. Just throw those up for a second. Now, if we go to the specific, the exact outcomes, meaning Warriors and Cavs in those 4 potential outcomes, what you end up having is Cleveland here in 4, Warriors plus 210, Cleveland 100-1. That has gone from 100-1 to 80-1 back to 100-1. In 5, there's the Warriors at plus 150, the Cavs at 75-1. You win in 6, the Warriors are plus 450, the Cavs at 20-1, and you win in 7, the Warriors are plus 500, the Cavs are 16-1. Already, what I notice is, if you think the Warriors are going to win in 5, that flip-flopped. It was that way yesterday. Yesterday, it was the generic was plus 150, and I pointed out the Warriors were at plus 140, and I said, if you think the Warriors are going to win in 5, just bet them. Yeah, bet it generically. They've flip-flopped that. They've changed that now. But as you look at all those,
everyone's blaming you that you drove over to grab.
You're welcome, everybody. As you look at that, what do you think? You've got the Warriors at about minus 920 something, so you're probably like me. You think it's 5 or 4.
Yeah, it's definitely a favorite to be 5 or 4. There was one shop yesterday that came out and actually lined Warriors minus 2.5 games. I'm curious if you were to take a guess. Remember, this is a guess, people. Where you would price Warriors minus 2.5 games at?
Minus 2.5 games. If the line is,
I'm putting Gil on the spot. So.
Yeah, if it's anywhere between minus 900 to minus 1400, and the Warriors are minus 2.5 games, I'm thinking that the Warriors are still a favorite. I'm saying the Warriors probably minus 200 on that.
Yeah, it was a little higher. It was like 255, which I think is actually a little high, like mathematically, but they're a favorite to win in 4 or 5 by quite a big margin.
Big margin.
That implies there's like 71 or 72.5% implied percentage of in 4 or 5.
A great way of putting it in perspective.
Yeah.
The Warriors minus 2.5 are minus 255. Yeah, I would say minus 200, but still, you get the point. Let's do this one. For MVP, always a creative way to bet the NBA Finals.
I like this one, by the way.
Yeah, this is, look, this is one of these NBA Finals. Someone was asking me yesterday, how are you betting this? And I said, well, I've got this Warriors prop that we've talked about since the beginning of the playoffs where I have the Warriors under 7.5 losses at plus 155 and at plus 131. I bet it twice. So for me to cash that, the Warriors have to win 4-0, 4-1, or 4-2. I'm not really doing much else right now because I'm not betting the 12.5 tonight. I might try something creatively with the money line if I can find something else, if you know what I mean. But MVP might be a way to play this. I talked about before the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. I talked about how if you're a Caps fan and you believe that if the Caps win, there's no way they don't give the Conn Smythe to Ovechkin, maybe you bet Ovechkin and then find the shortest price on the Vegas Golden Knights, play it that way. If you believe that it's only going to be Ovechkin if the Caps win. Braden Holtby obviously having something to say about that. I had a buddy who did the opposite of that. He bet Marc-Andre Fleury to win the Conn Smythe, the award for the best player throughout the NHL's postseason, and the Caps at plus money. He played it that way. And then, of course, he said, watch the Golden Knights win like 7-4 in game 1. Sure enough, they won 6-4.
Basically did.
Yeah, and he got beat on both on that end. But, okay, let's talk about the NBA Finals. Same sort of way, right? Kevin Durant is the short shot to win the MVP. This is courtesy of the South Point right here. Kevin Durant minus 125. Steph Curry's at plus 150. LeBron's at plus 600. Everybody else is a longer shot than the field. The field here at the South Point. South Point always has good field prices and everything, by the way. Field is 10-1. And then everybody else is 20-1 or longer. Clay at 20-1, Draymond at 25-1, or as Chris Webber calls him, Drummond at 25-1. And then everybody's triple digits after that. So how do you play this? Do you think that if you're a Warriors guy, maybe this is the way to play it?
So, yeah, I think it is, but the problem is that you have 2 guys that are very likely and the 2 favorites to actually win the MVP award. But and there's nothing really behind this statistically or like modeling anything. MVP bets generally are just your opinion and you hope you're right, and it's for fun more often than anything else. But 358 days ago, I messaged a buddy and said, next year I'm going to be on Steph Curry MVP pretty big. At that point in the series last year, it was pretty evident that the new guy that got a ton of flack for leaving OKC to go to Golden State, named Kevin Durant, they wanted him to win MVP of the finals, get a ring, win the MVP trophy, kind of put some stuff to rest. And I said next year, because when they won their first championship, Steph wasn't the MVP. It was Andre Iguodala, because he locked up LeBron and held him to like 40% shooting or something in the series. Steph has no NBA finals, and they're at the luxury, and especially now this year, where they can kind of just choose who they want to be the guy, and especially after he kind of came out in that third quarter and saved their butts against Houston. Like, Steph's going to win the MVP, and they want him to win the MVP. And on top of it all, KD's looked out of it now for the last few games, and like
something happened in that Houston series where overnight it looked like he had no confidence.
And in the ISO ball thing, and it's weird because we're like, oh, he only scored 27, he looked really bad, or he only scored 32. But it was defensively, he stopped rotating as hard. He gave up personally 9 offensive rebounds in that Game 7 against Houston.
And he had some very strange turnovers, and Kerr got on him for this, where he would dribble late into the clock and then
try to hurry and give it up.
He would jump, which, fundamentally basketball camp, they tell you, listen, if you jump, prepare to shoot. But he would jump and pass, right?
Very elementary stuff.
Yeah.
And Draymond was yelling at him in that first half, and they came out in the second half and played more of the Warriors. Let's just let Steph do his thing ball. It worked, obviously. I think Steph, and you can get up, look around globally, up to plus 200 on Steph to win MVP. That's worth, I think, a big bet, as much as you can get down on MVP bet. I'd be shocked if he didn't win it. Obviously, now this is the question. LeBron doing his 40, 10, and 10 thing could win if they somehow forced like 6 or 7 games. Probably not. They probably need to win the series.
Yeah.
At that point, don't bet plus 600. Bet the Cavs at plus 800 over it.
Yeah.
Or whoever it was. Was it MGM that had it or Caesars? But
Caesars, yeah.
Anyways, that's my thoughts. I think Steph at 2-1 or even plus 150 is the way to go if you're.
I like that. A couple things also. Again, Andre Iguodala, who was the NBA Finals MVP, the first Warriors championship against the Cavaliers. Iguodala, again, in the series against the Rockets, 3 games he played, 43 possessions in which he checked. You were actually the one who tipped me off on this.
Yeah, I texted you. Yeah.
That's right, 43 possessions in which he checked Harden and Paul collectively. He gave up, count them, 1 field goal.
I think
1 made field goal.
I didn't think it was real, and I just kept looking, and it was coming from a source called ESPN, so I figured it's probably legit.
I've heard of them.
Yeah. Now, granted, they didn't shoot 40-something times, but it means that he either forced Chris Paul or James Harden, who ISO'd a ton in the series, just to pass it off and make someone else shoot it, which is always a good option.
Always good.
Or when they did shoot, they only made 1 shot. Or foul him, put him on the line, make him make the free throws. It's not like he only gave up 1 score, but overall, it's just an incredible stat. And he's obviously, if we're going to start getting into more details of the series, if he's not playing, he's been the guy that's been able to slow LeBron down the most. That does benefit Cleveland to some extent. Obviously, I think it was pretty apparent against Houston. As much as people didn't want to say Iguodala is an excuse for Golden State potentially not winning that series, it would have been a pretty lame one. But he's still a pretty important part of that team. So
certainly on that side of the ball.
It'll be the case again here in the finals if he isn't playing.
Iguodala out of Game 1 with that bone bruise to his knee that James Harden on the collision with Harden. That's how it happened in Game 3. Still suffering from that. And Kevin Love still in concussion protocol. Last thing before we go to break, Preston, because you brought up this notion of the resentment of KD coming to the Warriors in the first place. And I heard, and Mitch and Paulie had a guest earlier, really good guest, by the way, but he also alluded to it as well. I hate the people who who dislike the Warriors because KD plays for them. And I'll tell you why. Because while everybody who makes that argument is focused on the fact that KD, first of all, he played 9 years with Seattle and Oklahoma City. I don't know what you expect of him. Like, he's supposed to play there for his entire career. That's what you
have to get to happen. 10, and he was 1 year short. So it doesn't count.
I mean, I don't get that. By the way, that's as we talk. Obviously, the modern historical comparison is LeBron doing his decision show and then jumping in with Dwayne Wade in Miami and Chris Bosh joining him as well. But this has happened throughout NBA history. Even in the 70s and 80s, Bob McAdoo, who won an MVP with the Buffalo Braves. Not exactly the same thing because McAdoo was on the certainly the over the arc of his career. His best years were behind him, but he went to the Lakers and was happy to. He said, "I just want rings," and it was Magic and Kareem's team. He's like, "I'll average much less than I ever did."
Yeah.
And he, in those days, no one said a word. But the Kevin Durant thing that bothers me the most is that everybody spins it that way, and no one ever spins it as, What we saw from the Curry perspective on that is the most amazing thing in modern sports, and no one ever focuses on this. The fact that Steph Curry was a 2-time MVP. Where is there any other comp for this, where a reigning 2-time MVP said, you know what? You come here. I'm going to subjugate my game and my stardom and have you come here, and I am so happy with this because my goal is we're going to win more championships, and I'm going to do that. And the fact that no one, and everybody who makes the KD argument never seems to bring that up.
If that's that bad for KD, then they should just be like, holy cow, Steph Curry. Like, I can't believe you did that. It'd be that much of a positive on his end. That's a good point.
Drives me nuts. And by the way, if they don't have Durant, they don't win the championship now. So what are they supposed to do, not try to get him?
Right. I think this year was interesting how well they played with him on and off the court, and how weird this juxtaposition is now of him trying to go ISO and kind of messing with the flow, because I think whoever the guest was on earlier did have something where they just kind of been this ball-stopping team when they go through Durant, where everyone else, they flow freely, and it's been a much better brand of basketball, old-school Warriors basketball. So I think, it's very interesting. I don't know if they are a better team. Ultimately, that just sounds stupid to say they're better without KD. And they are better with KD, in my opinion, especially without Iguodala and some of they've struggled with depth. Livingston isn't as good as he's been in the past.
Absolutely.
Nick Young signing just didn't do anything.
Draymond, who people like to still talk about as like the big four, he's a shell of what he was if you watch him every day.
Weird side thought, like he somehow forgot how to shoot this year.
Yeah.
And I think they tried to mess with him in the beginning of the year, shooting and changing his shot. It didn't work, and they just decided, let's just win this year anyway. We'll work on it in the offseason because it hasn't improved. He's like a sub-30% three-point shooter now, which hurts their offense in general. He had games against the Cavs in the finals. He was hitting 5 to 7 threes, which was massive because they were just hoping he'd miss. And that won him a couple of those finals games, especially in that first matchup, would have been 2015. I'm so intrigued by the whole Durant-Steph thing, and I don't think it's going to ultimately matter. And I think KD's probably just going to re-sign there. But I think you make a good point about how Steph was just fine. He was a unanimous MVP, too. They won 73 games, and everyone looks at it as such a negative. But Steph didn't care. And that's honestly, that just shows you the brand of basketball they play. Mm-hmm. Like, just, in comparison to like a real life thing where he just doesn't care. And that's how they play basketball too.
The notion that this is arguably the most selfless thing ever, and the KD hate crowd never sees it that way. And Steph, for some reason, gets weird NBA hate within the league. A lot of jealousy there. We'll talk more about this. Golden State, I said 12.5. It is 12.5 in some spots, but consensus, it's really 13 now. Yeah. It's a baker's dozen. Golden State, 13-point favorites. Consensus now against Cleveland in game one. We'll talk about the macro basketball things that Preston wanted to get into, because I think that's very interesting about where this game is going. And in the same vein, not as sinister as my William Hill story, but in the same vein as my MLB season win totals MLB story and how difficult that was for me to get down some money on that, Preston has a little WNBA tale to tell. Same shop. We'll get into that next on A Numbers Game at VSiN.
It's A Numbers Game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, @BeatingTheBook and @VSiNLive.
66% of men lose their hair by age 35. Some people even notice it in their 20s, men that is. Even if you're not a part of that 66%, it's going to happen, and you want to get ahead of the recession, ahead of the baldness, because by the time you notice that, it might be too late. That's where 4hims.com comes in. 4hims.com. Thankfully, we live in 2018 where we have scientific-based solutions to help us out. You don't live 50 years ago where you're out of luck. 4hims.com, a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness for men, and more. Prescription solutions backed by science. Baldness is optional. Order now. My listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today. Right now, while supplies last. See website for full details. It'd cost you hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. I'm talking $5 United States dollars. Go to 4hims.com/numbers. That's FORHIMS.com/numbers. 4hims.com/numbers.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
How much was that, Jimmy?
$50,000 to win $500,000.
That's one of our friends from Houston, isn't it? I think that gentleman strolled through here during the baseball championships.
He came in this morning and he
He's a wonderful guy. I think what you have to sweat out in this situation is tonight's game. Because if he waited until after tonight, okay, and let's say the Rockets win, that number would change dramatically, okay? So listen, he's got a lot. He's a very good bettor. I mean, we know from the World Series. I mean, this fellow knows what he's doing.
Where John Mara is hoping, I just spoke to him, the Giants co-owner, and he said that, look, what we're trying to do is just make sure that all the bets are even across the board. And when I say even, like the types of bets that are being offered. What he's concerned about is a couple things. Number one, different states offering different types of props, things like that, rather than just, having a uniform type of bet that can be made through these states. The other thing he worries about is feeding addiction, quite honestly. He just says that, are we going to be creating more problems for people that have, struggles with gambling?
Buddy of mine calls me. I made a $1 parlay, he tells me, to win $9,477. So what I said to him, I said, wait for Game 5 to happen between the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Wait for that game to happen. If the Celtics win, you still do nothing. We'll take this one event at a time. If the Celtics win tonight, you still don't do anything. But if the Cavaliers win Game 5, then you simply bet the Cavaliers on the money line in Game 6.
I kind of like the veiled references. I think they're kind of funny. Keeps everything kind of in an entertainment, lackadaisical, feeling around it a little bit. If you start talking about, oh, that one's going to cover the spread, or if they start getting real, in depth on sports betting stuff during broadcast, that'll change things. I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I just hope when people start betting, and there will be some new people that start betting, they completely look at this as a recreation. They should not be looking at this as a profession. And that's kind of how I hope the media talks about this.
Back to a numbers game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
Back on a numbers game here at VSiN, Gil Alexander. Preston Johnson, kind enough to join us this hour, as he does from time to time, from Guru Elite DFS. He is the, let me try to get this right, Director of Sports Betting, Media, and
Content.
Content, sorry.
It's all right.
Content is king, everybody.
You're right there.
That's the word I forgot. Anyway, Preston's here. We love having Preston in. Basketball, by the way, this series, Game 1 tonight. Game 2 is not till Sunday, as the NBA drags this one out. Game 3 won't be till Wednesday, back in Cleveland. 3 people here at the South Point Hotel Casino, Jorge informs me, bet the Cavs on the series price at 100-1, which, for me, first of all, isn't really news and is a bad bet, and you even added to why it's a bad bet.
Yeah, I think if you just bet the money line in Game 1 and then took all of your winnings at plus 700-ish or whatever, and then bet it again in Game 2,
right?
That gets you like to 60-something to 1 just right there, and then they're going back to Cleveland, and they're still going to be dogs at home.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it gets closer to 300-1 to actually sweep, I think is probably the true number.
Yeah.
So betting 100-1 when you could just manually roll over a money line kind of 4-game parlay would be the better option to do it. Also, it's not going to win anyways, so...
The latter is my point. That you did it very well, very mathematically. Mine is, and it's not going to win anyway. That's right, which is a little less analytical. Hockey last night, but we'll get back to basketball in a minute and Preston's WNBA bet story. Hockey last night, because I can't go any longer ignoring it. The Washington Capitals, for the first time in their 44-year history, win an actual Stanley Cup final game. It is hard to stress how amazing this is for Washingtonians. 44 years this franchise has been in existence. Last night was the first time they won a Stanley Cup final game. I know, the Golden Knights did it their first try. Oh, it's amazing. Caps win it 3-2. Caps win it as plus 130 dogs in Game 2. Braden Holtby, 37 saves for the Caps. And Alexander Ovechkin, obviously because of his encounter with me the previous day, scores a goal for the Caps. Grade 8. Getting it done, by the way, and by encounter, in case you missed it.
Buy him lunch or something?
No, he just buzzed by me.
You just knew it was him. And...
Yeah, just to recap, I made a bet on the Diamondbacks. They gave me drink tickets. I don't drink, as you know, Preston. You don't drink either. But I was thirsty, so I got 2 Cokes. And so I had 2 Cokes, like a bad sitcom formula. So as I turned with 2 Cokes, I looked like the standard drunk guy in the middle of the day. Here comes Alexander Ovechkin, greatest player in franchise history of the franchise I love and grew up on, and a Hall of Famer.
Drop him.
Coming right at me. I have 1.5 seconds to think of what to say. I'm like, hey, Caps fan. He looks at me. He's like, oh, God, drunk guy. And he just walks by me. And I think if he heard me say in the distance as he walked away, I love you, Ovechkin.
He probably just gets that all the time and thought you were just another one of those guys.
A drunk guy in the middle of the day. I don't drink. So the Caps win it 3-2. Evens up the best of 7 Stanley Cup finals at 1 game apiece. Now, and let me just repeat what I said also. Listen, Braden Holtby save. Yes, Alex Tuch put the puck in the one spot that Holtby could make the save, but he made the save. It is no less amazing than all the saves that Marc-Andre Fleury has made. That could be, and let me just point this out, if the Washington Capitals, and there's a still shot of it there just a second ago, unbelievable. That could be, if the Capitals win this series, that's a big if, but if they do, that, ladies and gentlemen, is your iconic save in the history of the Washington Capitals. Ole the goalie, we love you, but that's the save, if the Caps win it all. The key moment besides that of the game, and that happened with just under 2 minutes left in the game, especially the time of the game that it happened, with the Caps nursing the 3-2 lead. Tuch's shot on what seemed like an open net, and you see the crowd already rising behind in excitement. Besides that play, it was the Caps killing off a 5-on-3 earlier in the period that might have made the series for the Caps. Now, it's a big might. This series is now a best of 5. It's 1-1, and let me just say this. Solace should be taken for the Vegas Golden Knights, because as you go back to Washington, and though Washington technically now has home ice, let me be the first to tell you, there is no home ice in D.C., and it's in the numbers, right? The Caps have been just unbelievable on the road. They have been very weak at home for whatever reason. So I am personally, Preston, going back to D.C., and I'm going to be there for Game 3 to see if I can help the cause.
I should just bet the Knights now and call it a day.
Maybe. I don't know. I will be there for Game 3.
I was shocked. I just heard the Knights are only -105. It's like a -115, -105 split. It seems like the Caps have some value, but I don't know anything about hockey.
So here's the thing. Before the series started, going back further. So my buddies, Todd Wright, Chris Felica, were telling me, they're hockey guys. They're like, go bet the Caps before the playoffs. This is their year. This is their year. But I'm scarred. I have post-traumatic stress disorder for 43 previous years. And so I wouldn't do it until they got by the Penguins. Once they vanquished the Penguins, the big brother, then it's like I bet the Caps +165 in the Eastern Conference Final against the Lightning. Cash that. Here before this series, Caps were +140 here at the South Point. Best price in town. Grab that. After they lost Game 1, still had the best price here at +220. Grab that. Now, as you point out, Caps 1-1 with home ice. -115, Knights -105, the slightest of favorites.
Yeah.
The slightest of favorites. I said before I came in here, if they're still plus money, I might do some more, but I'm going to stay off it now. I'm vested.
You said series price is basically +100 now?
No, that's the series price right there.
Oh, that is series, is the 115, 105.
Yes.
Oh, okay, that makes more sense. I thought he was referring to Game 3.
Oh, no,
that's short.
No, Game 3, the Caps are -133, somewhere in there.
Good. So I'm not going to go up to the window now asking for -115 Game 3.
No,
thanks.
No.
All right.
Yeah, no. Game 3, which is Saturday night in D.C., Capital One Arena, formerly the Verizon Center, formerly MCI. Caps try to go up 2-1. But the Golden Knights, again, should take solace, because really now, this is not like the Golden Knights. They have a home ice advantage. They're probably got the one big home ice advantage in hockey. Certainly it has manifested in the postseason. But, you got 5 games now. It's anybody's series.
You going to both?
No.
Just 3?
Just 3. May go to 5 back here, but 3 in D.C.
Back.
Yeah, I did not go to either first 2.
It's going to be good. If I had to bet, I think there's going to be a split there. I think it's going to be a 3-game series. It might even go 7.
I could see that.
How do you not go to Game 7 here in Las Vegas for the Stanley Cup? Like when I went to Game 1 just because I needed to say I went to the Stanley Cup Game 1, but I'd probably have to pay whatever it is to go to 7.
What's the ticket price on 7?
Probably double what 1 was. So
goodness,
probably at least $1,500 to get in, something like that.
Game 3. Saturday night in D.C., -135, we'll call it, on the Caps. Looking very much like this series is going to be a long one, quite the opposite of what we anticipate with the NBA Finals. Tell your WNBA story, because it's not a long story, it's a brief story. But people who listen to a numbers game, most famously, they remember my inability, or my difficulty, I should say, cashing NFL draft props at Will Hill. And for those who missed that story, it's pinned at my Twitter at Beating the Book. You can still check it out there. And that was that was an ugly experience. When you make a bet, when you win a bet, you should expect to get paid on a bet. And I documented it as clearly as I possibly could. And so that's one thing. Previously, about a month or so, 2 months before that, 2.5 months before that, I tried to bet MLB season win totals at CG. CG famously and they were very open and aggressive in their marketing. Like, hey, we're going to be the first to put out MLB season win totals. And on February 7th, well before season win totals had ever been put out, for MLB, they did, and I had an experience there where they wouldn't let me bet a second time for what was only a nickel. They tried to only get me to bet $200. So not as sinister because it wasn't about a bet that had cashed, but just kind of dumb because if you're going to aggressively market something, at least do what you say you're going to do. And $200 for something that's going to be held for that many months is just so stupid. Anyway, that was a story. You tried to make a WNBA bet at CG yesterday, or the day before. When was it?
It was yesterday morning.
What?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's not a huge story, and I didn't tweet about it to make it a big deal because it isn't. Because I don't guess it's not too surprising anymore, which is the sad part.
Right.
But it was. So I had gotten down at a certain number, a certain amount of money, and I needed a little bit more to make it to what I wanted it to be. And it was the same number for this WNBA total across the whole board in marketing. And sometimes if there's a book in town that's slower to move a number and then you try to bet it, they'll just reject it just because they know what you're doing, and then they'll move it. But this for this particular instance, because I'd already bet it a few minutes prior and I was just trying to get a little bit more at a slightly worse number, which was now the market number, I tried to bet $200 more on the total, and they rejected it. So I was like, well, it's for $200. I was actually kind of disappointed. Even I actually wasn't thinking they'd reject it at all. Yeah. And they did. And then I tried 100 just because I was already logged in, so I didn't have to log out and go into another app to get 200. And they rejected 100. So at that point, I was just like, well, that's like, why are they even offering?
They rejected 100.
$100. I know, I get it's the WNBA. It wasn't even a halftime total or something. It was a full game total. 100. Like, I don't know why you're offering it if you're not going to take $100 on it. Yeah. So
that's the whole story.
Yeah.
There's nothing more to the story. I mean, I just let it. I'll leave it there for people to soak that in. But you're right. As Vinny likes to say, are we booking or are we not?
Yeah. Well,
Vinny parlance.
I'll be honest, not to give. I mean, I'll give South Point a shout out because I'm on this show, but also Westgate. I think those are basically the two books remaining in town that really will kind of just take anything, which shouldn't be a big deal because what are you doing, booking or not?
Right.
Like he said. But when it's come down to where there's maybe only two books really that'll, like take, for example, yesterday, they're the only two books that would take 500 on the Memorial Golf Futures. And like no one else would even take more than 100. Shout out to them. I think that's all we can do at this point is just say go South Point, go Westgate, and keep doing your thing.
I like it. All right, Preston, on where the NBA is headed. I can't wait to hear this. Interested to hear that. And, of course, Jeff Hoos from the ARIA, race and sports manager, on the show as well today. All of that on the way. It's a numbers game right here at VSiN.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, at Beating the Book and at VSiNLive.
When was the last time you replaced your toothbrush? Do you always brush twice a day for a full 2 minutes? I hope the answer to that question is yes, and I hope the answer to the previous one is pretty darn often. But it should be noted, paying attention to these good habits has a huge impact on your health. That's why introducing Quip, spelled Q-U-I-P, is the new electric toothbrush that helps to fix the brushing habits that most people get wrong. And Quip does it with a lightweight and sleek design, simple time vibrations, and guiding pulses to give you a perfect 2-minute clean. Bulkier electric brushes have awkward charging stands, modes you don't need, and cost 5 times as much. Well, Quip, it starts at just $25, and you get brush head refills automatically delivered on a dentist-recommended 3-month schedule for only $5, and shipping on top of that, well, that's free as well. Quip's been featured in GQ, Oprah's O-List, and Time Magazine named it one of the best inventions of the year. Just go to getquip.com/game. Right now, get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. That's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/game, spelled GETQUIP.com/game.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you
Whether it's
missed.
SportsCenter or whether it's NFL pregames for our network or the others, will treat that hour from 12 to 1 Eastern much like, you and the Greek back in the day. I think it'll be above board. I think people will just be far more willing to discuss this the way certainly you have and we've done here. I think more people will just be at the party. And you and I have always felt the same way, Brent. Look, this is something everyone's doing, so let's just talk about it like adults. And I think now everybody is going to be much more willing to do so now that the Supreme Court finally took down what I thought was just an archaic law.
And there's an issue with that in New Jersey as well, in the current bill, and they're going to try to amend this, I think. But the current bill says that they cannot, a sports franchise owner cannot own a casino sports book. And Fertitta's a golden nugget up there, so they would not be allowed to open a sports book, which is something, that have been planning to rev up and get this going in New Jersey, and all of a sudden they stick this stipulation in that would prevent some of the owners that have interest in franchises. So I think they're going to amend that and kind of follow the Nevada model where they just won't be allowed to take wagers on their respective teams.
The Vegas Golden Knights will have home ice in the series, and the Vegas Golden Knights, largely as a result of that, and the fact that here in Vegas, the futures liability on the Vegas Golden Knights is, according to Johnny Avello over at the Win, if the Knights are to win the Stanley Cup, he estimates that citywide, sportsbooks wide, it's about a loss of anywhere between $5 and $10 million in the futures market. So that does inform why this price is what this price is. And here at the South Point Hotel Casino, as of moments ago before the show, the Golden Knights were minus 160. Minus 160 on the series.
It's come out that they're trying to actively recruit some of these universities to kind of get on their side and say, hey, you're going to get a cut of this if we can go ahead and lobby and get these integrity fees. You'll get a cut of it.
NCAA always has enough optics problems with everything else they have going on. Taking a direct cut of sports betting money is maybe not the best idea. So what the leagues are trying to do are saying, hey, the NCAA doesn't want it. We can just write into the bills that colleges will get it. I think I think the colleges do see they're going to have increased compliance costs. They see this as something they're going to have to deal with more than they are right now, and they probably see that money as attractive.
Back to a numbers game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
Back on a numbers game here at VSiN, the Vegas Stats and Information Network. Gil Alexander, Preston Johnson from Guru Elite DFS, kind enough to join us. The one final thing about the Caps and the Golden Knights, which of course I failed to mention, was the real problem here for the Caps. Evgeny Kuznetsov looks like it might be a separated shoulder. They're calling it like an upper body injury vaguely. I think it might be a separated shoulder. That's what the Caps, some rumors from the Caps camp said yesterday. Either way, if the Caps are without Kuznetsov, that's obviously a huge loss. The Caps forward, who leads all NHL players in the postseason with the most points, 11 goals and 14 assists. 11 goals, 14 assists in 20 games for Kuznetsov in this postseason. So that would be a huge loss for the Caps as well if that goes, for any amount of time, let alone the full series. So minus 115 on the Caps, minus 105, just a nod, the slightest nod to the home ice, which again, as I say, even as a Caps guy, doesn't really, there's no advantage to it really. So 5 hockey games, the most random of all the more major sports in terms of outcomes, in my opinions. We shall see. Anybody's series. Preston, you mentioned earlier on the show, and I'm fascinated always to hear your thoughts on basketball. We actually have more – basketball is – as much as we talk about college football together, basketball is almost the most interesting sport to talk about in many ways, just from how teams play the sport. And again, what's so fascinating from a handicapping standpoint, the line I always like to give is, it's not as if you can put – Larry Bird, Magic Johnson, the Big O, Will Chamberlain, and Bill Russell in as your starting 5 and expect to score 300 points. There's a optimal efficiency to any 5. And as Bob Stoll from Dr. Bob Sports likes to point out, to whatever degree you buy into what he points out, what's definitely apparent is that some guys who, with our eyes, we are like, oh my God, what a play. It's like jazz, what a ball play. They actually don't make their teammates better in the long run. What was your thoughts, just macro, on the league and how this is going?
Yeah, it was really noticeable in both of the conference finals, but especially the Eastern Conference Finals. And it was that we had that week here where it was only 80 degrees again after it was 100 for a while. And I was like, I'm going to go to the pool. Like, I know, I just like had this epiphany. And
That's what you do at the pool. You think about these
yeah,
things.
I'm just sitting at the pool, like make my wife take care of the 2 kids, and I sit there and think about the NBA.
While she's taking care of doing things that family needs.
Right.
Oh, the step back jumper.
So someone had actually written an article, and it was basically talking to D'Antoni after, I think it was game 2, they were down 0-2, or it was game 3, they were down 1-2, and saying, you're doing a lot of isolation. You're not passing the ball as much. It's interesting because you're the guy, Mike D'Antoni, that revolutionized the NBA offensively, going fast, but just passing, pick and roll, shooting a lot of threes, getting to the rim. And he basically said, yes, but I'm not deviating from what we've done all year, and there's a reason we've done this. And for those that don't know, Daryl Morey and the Houston Rockets, they've been one of the kind of analytic forefront NBA teams, period. So there's a reason that they're going isolation with Harden and Chris Paul, especially against, I think, teams that are very high level defensively. Then I should have said if they are, there's a reason they're doing it. And so I think it's very apparent that they're doing it in a certain sense because, one, Harden and Chris Paul are some of the best guys that can do it, period. But they're doing it because they're going against a switching defense. And when I say that, let's back up now to like 20 years ago, 15 years ago in the NBA, was generally an isolation kind of mismatch brand of basketball, whether it was like the Kobe Bryant-ish type player just attacking someone one-on-one, or if it was posting up big men down low. But what we learned from analytics is, long twos and step back fadeaways, or guards, or even bigs in the post outside of like Shaq, just a dominant big like that, are not as efficient shots as layups, dunks, and 3-point shots.
Yeah, there was a period in the NBA where there was a lot of 2 men on one side and then 3 other guys just went to the other side of the
and just watched kind of, and they got back on defense if they missed. And so you'd have games in the 80s and 90s, and obviously that's changed. But what I think is fascinating is, for a while, the Spurs were, one of the first to it. Houston, we talked about, and then even Golden State at a level so high because they just have such talented players. And then the Cavs, too, to an extent. They all played this brand of basketball that was new, that was a lot of threes, a lot of layups and dunks, and they did it well and won championships. The people that were able to beat them to the punch, or at least limit them to an extent defensively, was they went from like the Thibodeau era of how to defend the pick and roll, like hard show, double team the ball handler and force him to pass. Now they've gone to this just switch everything defense and have guys defensively that are really versatile. And you see that with the Warriors with having like Durant, Iguodala, Draymond, Clay, and then Steph's kind of the guy that you can pick on, which we'll get to because that's what happened in the Western Conference Finals. But even Houston went out and they're like, well, if we're going to defend Golden State, we need to just be able to switch everything. So they went and got PJ Tucker. They got Luke Mamamute, who had the separated shoulder injury, and he wasn't really the same and didn't play much in the Western Conference Finals. But they went out and got guys that can just switch everything. Boston's very much compromised in that same fashion. And so now what we've seen, to get to the kind of this end point here, is the defense switch everything defense has been really effective. And you even saw it against the Warriors, where now Durant was just ISOing a ton. And you're like, what's going on with the Warriors defense? Well, it's because Houston can just switch. And when you're not doubling or switching, there's just not guys open because you're just switching everything. There's not as much space. You need to just hope that your best player can go one-on-one and score a basket. And it was tougher for Golden State to do that. And so because of the switching defense, and you're now seeing, 20 years later, this ISO ball era kind of coming back because it is the most efficient. But the difference being that they're not taking long twos now and post-ups, which are really inefficient shots. But you have guys like James Harden, Chris Paul, and even Kevin Durant or LeBron that are efficient step-back three-point shooters, or can get to the rim, at a high rate and make free throws, or make the pass correctly for a three if it gets to that point, if they help inside. And so now this ISO ball is kind of taken over, and it was really, I think, demonstrated in Boston, Cleveland even more so, because all Cleveland did after a few games was hunt Terry Rozier. I think it was very evident in Game 3 after they were down 0-2. That was their entire philosophy.
I criticized Brad Stevens because no one else wants to criticize him. I said, if Terry Rozier's on LeBron 6 or 7 times, at some point that's Brad Stevens' fault.
And you saw the next game, Boston adjusted, and as soon as they got the switch with LeBron on Rozier, he bolted for the corner, and Baines would step up, or Horford or Morris, and everyone would rotate over, and Rozier basically was saying, LeBron, you're going to have to make the pass to the corner, and Rozier get there. So they did make adjustments after the first game, which helped, and then Boston ended up winning Game 5. At home, but even on the other side, Boston was going one-on-one, spreading the floor, attacking, and against Philadelphia, especially Game 1 from the get-go, all they did was go after J.J. Redick and Marco Bellinelli. They said, good luck. If you want to play those guys who can hit a bunch of threes, okay, but you're going to have to stop us going isolation on these guys. And it worked because, honestly, these defenses that are able to switch are good defenses, and everyone's realizing it. And so now we're getting back into this kind of era where it's re-revolutionizing, where ISO basketball against good mismatches is the most efficient way, using threes and inside shots to play basketball now offensively.
I have a couple reactions to that, one of which I'll get to in a moment. But my initial reaction is, you said it in there, you got to have the personnel, though, to do this, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
that's the issue. So now everybody's going to try to copy this, but if you don't have the players to make this happen, right? It's sort of like how does this apply to, I don't know, I'll just pick, the Washington Wizards, right? They don't have the personnel to do this.
Yeah, John Wall isn't going to hit step-back threes at a rate where it's
Right.
an efficient shot.
They're not deep enough, although they were deeper this year. They're not deep enough to on defenses, switches, and
even a great example is like the Toronto Raptors, where
Right.
letting DeMar DeRozan go isolation is actually pretty fine for a defense generally.
I got to comment on the isolation part of this too.
All right.
Next, more with Preston Johnson right here on A Numbers Game at VSiN.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, @BeatingTheBook and @VSiNLive.
All right, Preston, answer this honestly. When was the last time you replaced your toothbrush?
10 days ago.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Do you always brush twice a day for a full 2 minutes?
Yes.
Good for you. That's good. Most people do not, though. And paying attention to those good habits has a massive impact on your health. Not only that, hygiene. Come on. Be nice to everybody. Introducing Quip. That's how you're going to get helped with this. Spelled Q-U-I-P. It's the new electric toothbrush that helps to fix the brushing habits that most people get wrong. Quip does it with a lightweight and sleek design, simple time vibrations, and guiding pulses to give you a perfect 2-minute clean. Bulkier electric brushes. They've got awkward charging stands, modes you don't need, and cost 5 times as much. Who needs that? Quip starts at just $25, and you can get brush head refills automatically delivered on a dentist-recommended 3-month schedule for only $5. Shipping's free as well. Quip has been featured in GQ, Oprah's O List, and Time Magazine named it one of the best inventions of the year. Here's how you get the savings. Go to getquip.com/game right now. Get your first refill pack free with a Quip electric toothbrush. Once again, that's your first refill pack free at getquip.com/game, spelled GETQUIP.com/game.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
How much was that, Jimmy?
50,000 to win 500,000.
That's one of our friends from Houston, isn't it? I think that gentleman strolled through here during the baseball championships.
He came in this morning and he
He's a wonderful guy. I think what you have to sweat out in this situation is tonight's game. Because if he waited until after tonight, okay, and let's say the Rockets win, that number would change dramatically, okay? So listen, he's got a lot. He's a very good bettor. I mean, we know from the World Series. I mean, this fellow knows what he's doing.
Where John Mara's hoping, I just spoke to him, the Giants co-owner, and he said that, look, what we're trying to do is just make sure that all the bets are even across the board. And when I say even, like the types of bets that are being offered. What he's concerned about, a couple things. Number one, different states offering different types of props, things like that, rather than just, having a uniform type of bet that can be made through these states. The other thing he worries about is feeding addiction, quite honestly. He just says that, are we going to be creating more problems for people that have, struggles with gambling?
Buddy of mine calls me. I made a $1 parlay, he tells me, to win $9,477. So what I said to him, I said, wait for Game 5 to happen between the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Wait for that game to happen. If the Celtics win, you still do nothing. We'll take this one event at a time. If the Celtics win tonight, you still don't do anything. But if the Cavaliers win Game 5, then you simply bet the Cavaliers on the money line in Game 6.
I kind of like the veiled references. I think they're kind of funny. Keeps everything kind of in an entertainment, lackadaisical, feeling around it a little bit. If you start talking about, that one's going to cover the spread, or if they start getting real, in depth on sports betting stuff during broadcast, that'll change things. I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I just hope when people start betting, and there will be some new people that start betting, they completely look at this as a recreation. They should not be looking at this as a profession. And that's kind of how I hope the media talks about this.
Now, back to A Numbers Game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
A person who does the pregame event before the Knights playoff games, you probably should not have Imagine Dragons playing the song that the Caps always come out to in their home games, because that's all of that. The Caps are already so used to that. That gets them fired up. Caps win.
I saw you tweet that, and you said that when they win, this is going to be why, and then they won the game.
Again. Analytics, where it lives, right here on A Numbers Game. So finally, Lynn, just to wrap it up here on this, well, not to wrap it up, but just to reiterate, how are you then betting this? Are you betting the MVP market? You're betting Steph?
Yeah, I'm going to bet Steph to win the MVP. Plus 200 to plus 150 is the ranges I've seen. I think those are great bets. I haven't made any other bet. I think I wanted to make a minus 2.5 series games bet, but ultimately couldn't just because the price was way too, I think higher than it actually should have been. And so at this point, I'm staying away. I'm probably just going to play game to game.
Game to game. That's where we're going to do it. Jeff Hoos, race and sports manager over at the Aria. He's going to join us momentarily. And then I tell Preston why I hate isolation and why I can't stand what James Harden and Chris Paul have done to the game. Next on A Numbers Game right here at VSiN.
It's A Numbers Game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, at Beating the Book and at VSiNLive.
The best way to watch our shows? It's a no-brainer. The VSiN app. With the VSiN app, you can watch our shows live or on replay. You can even play them in the background while you use other apps. The VSiN app also has live updating odds, the latest news from VSiN's reporters and odds makers, and even a customizable homepage by sport. More details at vsin.com/app. That's vsin.com/app. The VSiN app, powered by our friends at AmericanEagle.com in the Apple and Google Play app stores right now.
Hey guys, by now you had to have heard of winnersandwhiners.com, the site that offers predictions on every game on the board every day for free. Well, if you can appreciate the value that can be found in totals, winnersandwhiners.com now has analysis and predictions on the key over-under value plays of the day, including their daily overachiever, which identifies the likely highest scoring game of the day. And they're offering all this for free. Just go to winnersandwhiners.com and click the link that says Become an Insider. That's winnersandwhiners.com.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you
Whether
missed.
it's SportsCenter or whether it's NFL pregames for our network or the others, we'll treat that hour from 12 to 1 Eastern much like, you and the Greek back in the day. I think it'll be above board. I think people will just be far more willing to discuss this the way certainly you have and we've done here. I think more people will just be at the party. And you and I have always felt the same way, Brent. Look, this is something everyone's doing, so let's just talk about it like adults. And I think now everybody is going to be much more willing to do so now that the Supreme Court finally took down what I thought was just an archaic law.
And there's an issue with that in New Jersey as well, in the current led bill, and they're going to try to amend this, I think. But the current bill says that they cannot, a sports franchise owner cannot own a casino sports book. And Fertitta's a golden nugget up there, so they would not be allowed to open a sports book, which is something, that have been planning to rev up and get this going in New Jersey, and all of a sudden they stick this stipulation in that would prevent some of the owners that have interest in franchises. So I think they're going to amend that and kind of follow the Nevada model where they just won't be allowed to take wagers on their respective teams.
The Vegas Golden Knights will have home ice in the series, and the Vegas Golden Knights, largely as a result of that, and the fact that here in Vegas, the futures liability on the Vegas Golden Knights is, according to Johnny Avello over at the Win, if the Knights are to win the Stanley Cup, he estimates that citywide, sportsbooks wide, it's about a loss of anywhere between $5 and $10 million in the futures market. So that does inform why this price is what this price is. And here at the South Point Hotel Casino, as of moments ago before the show, the Golden Knights were minus 160. Minus 160 on the series.
It's come out that they're trying to actively recruit some of these universities to kind of get on their side and say, hey, you're going to get a cut of this if we can go ahead and lobby and get these integrity fees. You'll get a cut of it.
NCAA always has enough optics problems with everything else they have going on. Taking a direct cut of sports betting money is maybe not the best idea. So what the leagues are trying to do are saying, hey, NCAA doesn't want it. We can just write into the bills that colleges will get it. I think that's I think the colleges do see they're going to have increased compliance costs. They see this as something they're going to have to deal with more than they are right now.
This is a numbers game with Gil Alexander, broadcasting only on the Vegas Stats and Information Network.
He's one of those idiots who believe in analytics.
Analytics, statistics, and more are used to win wagers, and Gil has every number you need to cash your tickets. Now, live from the VSiN studios in the South Point Hotel and Casino, it's Gil Alexander.
Hour number 2 of a numbers game right here at VSiN, where sports betting analytics live, actionable sports betting information. Gil Alexander, Georgie Bueno, who we have yet to hear from on the show today, but he's got some international sports news. Something about Usain Bolt losing a gold medal. Something about Zinedine Zidane. Is that how you pronounce it, Jorge?
You got that right.
Thank you. Other stuff. Jorge will be here momentarily, longer than those 2 words he just said. And we have with us Preston Johnson, whose wife is taking care of the kids, and Preston is just thinking about basketball, shirking his family responsibilities. He's with us for one more segment. And Jeff Hoos, our friend from the RA Race and Sportsbook, the manager of said Race and Sportsbook, kind enough to give me a chair there last night for the Caps victory. What's happening, Jeff?
Yeah, it's great to be back. How you doing, Gil?
I'm doing well. Let me ask you a question. When a series like the Warriors and the Cavs is this lopsided, and as we were documenting in the first hour, there has not been a series price like this in the NBA in 17 seasons, when the Lakers were minus 2,000 against the Allen Iverson-led Sixers. So when you have something this lopsided in this big of a postseason matchup, finals in whatever sport, do you tend to then see much less action on just games in general, on the series in general? What's the net effect of what you see at your shop?
The net effect is you see a lot of dog action from people that might not really even feel that way. It's just that it's the only
play to make.
Only play to make.
Are you seeing that yet with the Cavs?
Yeah, I mean, with the casual bettor, yes, because the amount of money you're going to need to invest on the Warriors to make a significant investment, it takes out 90-something% of the clientele.
Yet they're I understand that, but they're taking a flyer on a Cavaliers team.
Yes.
That isn't going to beat the Warriors.
Yeah, well, I mean, the argument you can make is you've got a LeBron James team, LeBron James, the best player on the planet, at a plus 650 money line, or $6 or $7 money line, depending on where you are in town tonight.
Auto play.
You're not going to get a lot of opportunities to do that.
You certainly
haven't had a lot of opportunities to do that the past 15 years. There may never be another opportunity to do that. There's your play tonight. You've got something to watch for 3 hours.
Let's flash them up again in case of those who missed it last hour. Here's how it looks across town. South Point and your shop, MGM, the low mark for the Warriors at minus 900 on the series, Jeff. Plus 600 in both cases coming back. Caesars at minus 1,400 on the other side of things on the Warriors, plus 800 on the Cavs. You're that close to having just a situation where you go to one book, make one bet, and lock in some no loss at a very least in another. We're just shy of that. Caesars with plus 800 on the Cavs on the way back. We don't know. Obviously, Caesars begging for some Cavs money. We don't know if that's one bet they took massively on the Warriors, if that's several bets, but that's what it looks like at Caesars right now. That's the update on that. Game 1 tonight in Oakland. Warriors 13-point favorites. It should be noted that's even more than the Lakers were favored by in Game 1 against the Sixers 17 years ago.
5-game series in 2001.
Yeah, right? Allen Iverson dropped 48 in Game 1 in an overtime win.
Yes.
As Preston pointed out, I think that was when he stepped over Tyronn Lue, famous NBA moment. And then the Lakers proceeded to win 4 in a row. Allen Iverson, as Bob Stoll from Dr. Bob says, one of the fake all-stars in his opinion, based on analytics. Think of, as much as you want to buy into.
Not a fan of the shoot first point guard?
Yeah. Plus minus has its limitations. I'm just going to say. That game where Chris Paul was going crazy for the Rockets and James Harden was abysmal, Harden was plus 8 and Paul was minus 13. So,
yes.
Let's not be sacred about it anyway. Preston was saying something last hour. Recap what you were saying. You were not happy with how it came out.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because it was long-winded, and I don't know if I was as articulate as I could have been, but to summarize it simplistically, and then I know you wanted to have a response, I just find it very intriguing and interesting that 15 to 20 years ago, the NBA was a lot of isolation and post-ups, which we learned shortly after. There's a lot of long twos and post-ups were inefficient shots. And then we revolutionized the way offenses run with a lot of threes, layups, and dunks, and ball movement and scheming. And now we've seen it turn back to actually 15, 20 years ago, a lot of isolation, finding the bad mismatch. Only this time they're utilizing the fact that they know threes and dunks and layups are the most efficient shots. So now it's back to actually mismatch isolation basketball being the most efficient, which is why that's all Houston basically did all year. That's why the Cavs and Boston were going back and forth with it. Even KD, for Golden State, it's just crazy to see that we're actually kind of re-revolutionizing it back to ISO, only incorporating the two main points of analytics, which is shoot threes and layups.
Very concisely put. And that's why, for me, by the way, the Warriors are still the most beautiful thing in sports because they are different, right? They do something totally different. That play in Game 7 where Steph got pinned under the basket on a drive by two defenders, shot it out to Jordan Bell. Jordan Bell in one fell swoop because Steph, as he used to do, kept going, went to the corner. Jordan Bell threw his legs, one shot. Steph with the quickest release in the game. Bam. That was like iconic Warriors kind of basketball. Here's where I think you're right about all that. I think it's interesting, as you sat in the pool, that you thought about this.
Yes.
I would go one step further, though. I would say that Harden specifically and Paul to some extent have taken it so far, though, that I cannot stand how they play basketball.
This is what's so interesting because everyone said the same thing about the D'Antoni teams, even just the Houston teams the last 2 years, not this season, where they're breaking basketball, only shooting all these threes and driving to the basket.
Oh, no, that's not what
And now they're like re-breaking it, going isolation, where it's just such boring and kind of bad and ugly basketball to watch. I get where you're coming from, but it's both times it's been D'Antoni.
I said this, that is interesting. But what I said the other day was James Harden and Chris Paul are phenomenal basketball players. James Harden is going to be the MVP. And by the way, it's minus 3,000 offshore. I'd still bet it, because that vote is from the regular season on Harden. I don't think there's any way that he can't win that. And I suppose because the votes are already in, so it can't even be like LeBron plays well. It doesn't matter. So Harden's going to win the MVP. Chris Paul, I believe, has gotten a whole bunch of crap for not making it far into the playoffs. It hasn't been his fault, in my opinion. So I think he's downgraded for that unfairly. So I really respect their games. However, it has gotten to the point now where the both of them spend more time trying to game the game than they're actually playing the game. And it drives me crazy. It's like one big game of dare the refs. And in Game 7, he dared them, Harden did, and they didn't call it. They're like, yeah, we're not bailing you out. You're playing the Warriors.
Second half of Game 6, too, everyone said the refs weren't calling anything because Harden was just flailing his head back and trying to draw fouls, and they weren't blowing the whistle. And so,
yeah, you can have that game. Yeah. That's what drives me crazy about it. And hey, listen, James Harden's a special player, and it works for him against everybody else. But if there's going to be some copycats out there, they're going to try to play like James Harden. That's not
real quick. How hard is it to miss 27 straight threes in one game?
You know what? I said that to my buddy too. Like, you got to try.
It is very hard to accidentally not make one or two of those.
You got to try.
They basically needed to miss all 27 to keep it so where Golden State could just win the game by, was it 9 final score cover?
To make it coasty at the end.
I mean, they make one or two more of those and swings the other way, and it's a tie game late, and who knows?
Yeah.
It's just insane.
So many of these games come down to your three-point percentage.
Always nowadays.
Yes, you look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, it's just it took us a while to get to the lead there. 27 in a row. No matter what you do to get to 27 in a row, at the end of the night, we're all shaking our heads. A D'Antoni team, who's been the best team in the regular season, has come up short again, like they did when he was with Phoenix. And you wonder, do you blame him, or is that just a time where you throw your hands up in the air and say, this happens?
There's definitely a throw hands up element.
This happens.
Yeah. Right. There's gray areas to all this, right?
I mean, Preston just said, it's statistically very hard to miss 20. The three of us, if we went out and took 9 each,
uncovered,
one would go in.
Yeah.
It would be, we couldn't do it intentionally, and you've got, James Harden, and you've got these outside shooters on Houston. You can't put one in. I mean, they missed Chris Paul badly. That was a terrible break that he went down at the end of Game 5. Because if you look in the games Houston took in that series, Paul took over in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
You have a lot of Harden being Harden in the first half. Paul would take over in the second half. He'd get a little less Harden, and Houston would come away with the wins in those games. They'd take Golden State out of their comfort zone. You didn't see that in 6 and 7.
And if Chris Paul plays, he probably facilitates it a way where,
at least closer in the second half.
On the one hand, I could say they make some of those choices, but they couldn't have been more open on some of those 27-3. So
they might have won 1 for 27.
Yeah.
To D'Antoni.
2 for 27 even.
I have to give D'Antoni not a pass, but I mean, The Chris Paul injury might have cost them a championship this year. And then the 2 times in Phoenix, Amari Stoudemire got hurt one of the years. And then the second year was the weird bench clearing suspensions against the Spurs, which we later found out one of the officials said might have been fixed anyways. And so there was a big thing about it. So he might have just had some bad luck 3 times, and he could easily have just had 3 titles by now. So I give him a pass. I think he's still, doing a good job.
The Robert Horry suspension, or the Robert Horry forcing the suspension.
Yeah, it was a pretty good trade there for the Spurs.
Yeah, Sun Spurs, famously back in the Western Conference Finals back in the day. So then, Preston, for the people who Jeff is talking about who have bet the Cavaliers at plus 600 at his shop, what's the way that those plus 600s cash? What has to happen in this series for that to actually manifest?
Sure, I think, to be completely honest, if I was actually going to bet that because I thought there was some literal value in the number or something, I think the better way to do it would actually be to bet them game 1 money line and game 2 money line. If you win game 1 money line, you're actually going to get a better number than plus 600 anyways. And if they lose that and you bet the same amount in game 2, your net is still going to be about plus 600 or plus 650. So I think if they go down 0-2, they're never winning 4 out of 5 against Golden State. So in order to win the series and cash a plus 600 series bet, they have to steal one of these, I think, in Golden State to start the series off and go back to Cleveland at least 1-1. So if I was to actually go about it myself, I think I would just bet Cleveland money line tonight or Sunday. And if they win one of those, you're going to be making as much or more than the series bet pays. And if they go down 0-2, I just don't think you can really say that they still have a chance at 6-1 is even worthwhile. So that's how I would go about it. I think is if you want to take a shot on the Cavs, then fire some money lines when they're massive dogs here in game 1 and game 2.
All right. That makes sense. Jeff, any creative props over there at MGM in terms of this series? I'm checking on your site right now. Props. Oh, yeah, you got stuff. You got the old first team to score 15.
It's always a favorite.
Always a favorite.
The
biggest shout in the sports book is always when that happens. First team to score 15 today. Cavaliers plus 200.
What?
Warriors minus 250. I'll take the Cavs.
Oh, that's just like a coin flip almost. Yeah,
I'll take the Cavs.
It's not a coin flip. But.
So if you're at Aria today, you already know what'll be the most tense moment in the room and the biggest crowd reaction in the room this evening if you're coming over for the game, guys.
Are there people, I imagine your number is somewhat, algorithmic or whatever the word is, but it's also has to be people are betting and laying minus 240 on the Warriors to score 15 first? You're actually taking action on that big of a favorite.
It's to an extent, yeah.
Because a 15-point event is so small that it's almost a coin flip. In a sense. That's crazy.
I can imagine that, we're just opening up the shop a few minutes ago. We're probably going to take
cool. Yeah.
all Cavs action today.
I would.
By the way, having the Cavs and Caps in the finals at the same time, we're going to lead this is going to be the season record for miswritten tickets.
By the way, also Vegas businesses who are now putting all of their any print that they have, they're putting it in lowercase now. They're removing everything from caps, capital letters. They do realize that Capitals and Washington Capitals is not about capitalization of letters, right?
Yes. Also, ironically, their logo is all in lowercase.
That's right. It's like,
that's
great.
A good point. I thought of that.
That's
and
awesome.
We've been over this before. As an English major, I have myriad issues.
You have a myriad of issues as well.
With poor grammar.
Yeah. Here's another one. So I'm all over the Cavs, plus 200 to 15. As Preston says, that's too much of a sprint to not.
Especially Golden State always starts slow anyways. Like, I don't know. That is a weird line to me.
And especially this year where Golden State's like, I'm not really even interested yet.
Yeah, halftime we'll decide to try. Yeah, I like that bet.
Listen to this one. Largest lead of the game, which we usually see in the high teens.
21.5.
20.5. And the over is juiced at minus 140.
You can see that, though.
I'd probably bet over.
Yeah, you've had a number of blowout playoff games this year.
I'm pretty sure we didn't touch on this in the first hour. One thing I've done every year in the LeBron going to the finals era, which is 8 or 9 straight times now, which I won't do this year, his path to the finals has been generally untested and pretty easy, and against an Eastern Conference that's not very good, that whenever he goes, even the time they beat OKC in 5, they lost game 1 in the first halves by a ton. Like no matter what, is 100% if you fade LeBron in the finals game 1, first half and full game. And I think it's the last 2 seasons, especially against Golden State, they've won game 1s and game 2s by over 20 in all of them.
I just love the over on 20.5 is juiced.
Yeah, I think that's actually right, but yeah.
Player to have more points in the game, LeBron versus KD. LeBron's minus 200, KD's plus 170. Well,
if it turns into a blowout,
I understand that.
That's probably a fair line, more or less.
Korver versus Draymond Green, or as Chris Webber calls him, Jermond. I love saying that. Kyle Korver, plus 155. Draymond, minus 175.
For points?
Yeah, give me Kyle Korver.
You guys should probably reverse the juice on that.
What happened to you there, Jeff? Jeff, we don't want to tell you your lines are bad, but don't change them until we bet them, okay? Got that, Jeff? And then finally, there's so many of these over at MGM. We talk about MGM here because Jeff Hoos is here from the Aria. Let's see what else we got here. Cavs total points. Well, this makes sense.
I got one, Gil.
Yes, please.
Large lead in the game. Over, under 20.5 points.
We were just talking about that, Jorge. Are you here?
Yes.
He was so in. He's like, this is a great prop. we just finished it.
Georgie Bueno, ladies and gentlemen. Steph Curry total points, 26.5. That's minus 110 on each side. All right. I'm not going to touch that. Anyway, whole menu worth of props over at MGM, and every property is going to prop it up for Game 1 and beyond in this NBA Finals. Preston Johnson from Guru Elite DFS. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Good luck
Appreciate
with
it.
all you're doing over there. You were saying off air you're doing some World Cup stuff?
Yeah, we just launched doing some content, guys writing, breaking down every group and country team in the entire World Cup, and hopefully, bet and make some money too at the same time.
Right. Obviously, you've got your hand in some WNBA personally. You're trying to bet a little of that.
Yeah, try to make some money on the side. Hasn't been good yet, but it's only a week and a half into the season.
It's an interesting time of year because do you book any College World Series, Jeff?
Yes. Once we get to the later rounds, we do.
Okay. All right. Because that's starting up this week, too.
Omaha. Always a good time.
Interesting time of year. Different kinds of bets. The money is still green. The money still spends. And we'll talk about that as the summer progresses. World Cup still a couple weeks away from kicking off. Can't wait for that. Gil Alexander coming back with more Jeff Hoos from the Aria. Preston, thank you. Enjoy. Have a good weekend, man.
Thanks again.
On the way, right here, a numbers game at VSiN.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, @BeatingTheBook and @VSiNLive.
Visit VSiNHotels.com for the best hotel rates at the most desirable destinations in the U.S. and beyond. New York City, Miami, Chicago, Los Angeles, even Hawaii. And, of course, right here in Las Vegas at the South Point Hotel and Casino, home of the VSiN studio. In fact, book your trip to Vegas through VSiNHotels.com and stop by the studio here at the tip of the strip while in town. Uncle Brent and his guys in the desert will be here waiting. That's VSiNHotels.com for discounts of up to 30% off. As Brent Musburger always says, cash and tickets is what it's all about. And that's what PropSwap is all about, too. PropSwap.com is a new online marketplace where you can buy and sell sports betting tickets. Looking for a good deal on a futures bet? Search PropSwap's listings for a second chance on that ticket and complete the purchase with your credit card. If you have a bet that's also close to cashing, post the ticket to PropSwap and find a buyer to lock in that money before it's too late. Cash out, cash in, go to PropSwap.com or call 1-844-PropSwap to get started. Void where prohibited.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
How much was that, Jimmy?
50,000 to win 500,000.
That's one of our friends from Houston, isn't it? I think that gentleman strolled through here during the baseball championships.
He came in this morning and he
He's a wonderful guy. I think what you have to sweat out in this situation is tonight's game. Because if he waited until after tonight, okay, and let's say the Rockets win, that number would change dramatically, okay? So and listen, he's got a lot. He's a very good bettor. I mean, we know from the World Series. I mean, this fellow knows what he's doing.
Where John Mara is hoping, I just spoke to him, the Giants co-owner, and he said that, look, what we're trying to do is just make sure that all the bets are even across the board. And when I say even, like the types of bets that are being offered. What he's concerned about is a couple things. Number one, different states offering different types of props, things like that, rather than just, having a uniform type of bet that can be made through these states. The other thing he worries about is feeding addiction, quite honestly. He just says that, are we going to be creating more problems for people that have, struggles with gambling?
A buddy of mine calls me. I made a $1 parlay, he tells me, to win $9,477. So what I said to him, I said, wait for Game 5 to happen between the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Wait for that game to happen. If the Celtics win, you still do nothing. We'll take this one event at a time. If the Celtics win tonight, you still don't do anything. But if the Cavaliers win Game 5, then You simply bet the Cavaliers on the money line in Game 6.
I kind of like the veiled references. I think they're kind of funny. Keeps everything kind of in an entertainment, lackadaisical, feeling around it a little bit. If you start talking about, oh, that one's going to cover the spread, or if they start getting real, in depth on sports betting stuff during broadcast, that'll change things. And I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I just hope when people start betting, and there will be some new people that start betting, they completely look at this as a recreation. They should not be looking at this as a profession. And that's kind of how I hope the media talks about it.
Back to a numbers game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
Mike Lamborn coming back with baseball picks later on the show. Yesterday, we all individually came up with the same exact pick. We were all on the Cardinals in 5. I said it first. Jason Weingarten was like, oh, it's funny you say that. I have that too. Mike Lamborn came on later, said he had that too. And then Jorge said, I already bet it. And then we knew it was over. And in fact, St. Louis lost in 5, 1-0. But it's baseball. Top of the 5th, St. Louis had a runner on third, 1 out, strikeout, couldn't get the runner in. And then in the bottom half of the 5th, St. Louis couldn't field the bunt properly and then shifted out of what would have been easy inning-ending double play position, and a run scores, and we lose it 1-0.
It's a brutal beat.
Well, it's baseball. It happens. Brewers win the game, by the way, 3-2, but we lost on the 5-inning line, 1-0. 2-2. Jason went 2-2 in the first innings yesterday, and then Josh's pick of the Minnesota Twins. Josh Towers going on a Twitter rant last night. His pick of the Twins was trailing 9-0 after 2, so he was murdering Romero, the Twins starter, for not being prepared. But then, the Royals led 9-0. The Twins got it to 9-8. We're watching the score while we're watching the Caps game, and then had runners on second and third, and Max Kepler struck out. So Josh had some stuff to say about Max Kepler. Check out Josh's ranted. What is his Twitter?
No, don't Josh.
No, don't Josh. And in this case, it's probably like, no, don't Josh. Don't say it. But he did. Royals had 2 solo shots to round out the final score. Royals won 11-8. So the Twins lose for him, and he was not happy about it. So we'll get Mike Lamborn's pick today. I might have a pick as well. Not sure. We'll get to that later on in the show. Jeff, though, baseball going on daily here at the South Point Hotel Casino. Now, talking out of school here, but I happen to have been privy to sort of the pie, right, at the South Point in terms of what the sports betting handle is on a yearly basis. And what people would be surprised by, because most people are like, oh, football, massively, it crushes everything else. Because of the longevity of baseball, when all is said and done, because baseball never ends, it's literally about 1/3 of the pot. It's it's negligibly less in terms of handle than that of football and basketball, because it lasts forever.
Yeah, there's so much data and there's so much product. It's every single day from the end of March until, well, it's getting later and later this year, beginning in November.
Yeah.
You have action every single day, and you have most days you have 15 games. There's so much product to bet on. There's so much, and that's still what you talk about with the professional bettor. There's so much data.
So much data. But here now, that's the one property. That's the South Point tip of the Strip. But we are not in the heart of the Strip. Heart of the Strip where tourists are. This is more of a local shop. It's not going to be that way. It's going to be a different pie. And Jorge was talking to you off camera about how this is the perfect storm, isn't it, for hockey? This is the perfect storm of it's the local team in their inaugural year doing something that has never been done before. If the Vegas Golden Knights win the Stanley Cup Finals, it is arguably the greatest sports story in North American sports history. Obviously, people will argue that, but in one respect, it absolutely is. And I can't stand people who would detract from that.
Yes.
It is.
It's our version of Leicester City.
And I'm a Caps fan. I'm telling you, it would be the greatest thing ever. And so then, from a betting standpoint, and then you have this colossally lopsided, at least by the number, NBA Finals that's running concurrently with it. Are you then seeing this unbelievable spike in hockey action? And even if you are, do you see it just dissipating next year if it's a normal season for the Knights?
Yes, I certainly do. Like I said, this is the 100-year storm. You've got the local team, the Stanley Cup Finals being played 4-minute walk from where we're making book, and at some of our places a 2-minute walk from where we're making book. You've got the local team here. You've also got a sequel NBA championship. You have a finals, 4th straight time where you got the Cavaliers and Warriors. You've got such a lopsided line that the prohibitive money lines involve eliminate a big percentage of the betting public. So making the Cavs the only play. All of that put together, yes, it is the perfect storm. All of that put together, no, the NBA is still a bigger deal.
Crushes it.
Yes, you've got LeBron James. This is our most
destroys.
This is our most famous athlete, and this is the Golden State Warriors, and we are right near California, and California is a huge part of the business we do on the Strip. There are 2 national brands, and you're going to see more handle and more ratings. I mean, as big as hockey is, what was nationally did a 3 last night, right?
Jorge and I got into this on the air.
We went over this game 1 the other day, did like a 3 nationally.
Jorge was trying to tell me, come on air, Jorge.
It did like a 40 locally, but it did like a 3 nationally.
And you were wrong.
No, I wasn't saying. I was saying that NHL will put up a good number.
I don't believe that's what you said.
It went up 7% over last year.
Come on, stop it with now you're leaning on the 7%.
Well, no, while that's valid, it's still. I mean, the reason I brought it up, it's still not that big a deal nationally.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's what I said.
Which sounds insane because I mean, if this is a national show, but if you're walking around Vegas right now, it's the only thing going on.
Well, so here's how this started. I was railing against the fact that the NHL had Game 1 scheduled the same night of what could be Game 7 of the Western Conference Finals,
yes.
de facto NBA championship, as people might call it, and how that was such a bad move for the NHL to have that happen. And I said it will just get pale. And the only cities that will watch it are Vegas and D.C.
Yes.
With Pittsburgh, by the way, coming in 3rd.
Yeah, and your
hockey town,
your Baltimore's and your Richmonds and your Caps
DC
fan base area.
Right, and then after that, it falls off a cliff. No one cares because it's hockey and it's regional. By the way, baseball has a bit of a regional problem too when it gets to the postseason. It's just that the good teams are in the bigger cities. So, and then the argument was, Jorge, and here's what I need a ruling on. I said that if it were standalone, they would have a bigger showcase, and people who wouldn't otherwise be inclined to watch hockey, they would get a bit of a spike from that. So last night was standalone. Do we have a number on that?
Not yet. And also remember, last night was on NBCSN, so it was on cable.
Oh, right. Okay,
so the number won't be quite as fair as usual. It goes back to NBC on Game 4. So Games 2 and 3 are on NBCSN, and then the Stanley Cup Finals Games 1, 4, 5, 6, 7 are all on NBC. So
4 will be an interesting barometer.
4 will be an interesting barometer. 5 back here in Las Vegas will be interesting. And who knows, like we've talked about, maybe this will go 7, and that'll be super interesting.
What about other sports now? We alluded to these earlier because we are now, as the NBA and NHL, because we're only talking about end of next week, these things are done.
Yes.
And then it becomes a sports world of nothing but baseball, the World Cup. We're very excited about the World Cup, the WNBA, and the College World Series. Now, obviously, golf is going to have a major at Shinnecock in a couple weeks, and Belmont is next week. There's one-time events in other sports. What is the sport in that group that people would be most surprised to know? And by the way, there's a Grand Slam tennis tournament going on right now. Do you even book the French Open at this point in the tournament?
We do. With the majors, we largely book futures, and then when we get to the late rounds,
then we book matches.
Yeah, it surprises a lot of our clientele from Europe because it's such a big gambling sport worldwide. Right. But a lot of Nevada shops have a more conservative approach to booking it.
So that tennis is, I've said this before, tennis then seems to me, and you just said it right there, it's the sport that the behavior of the American bettors versus international bettors is the biggest chasm. Obviously, soccer is a whole.
And you got a World Cup coming up too, which didn't make the list of things that are happening after the NBA season.
No, I mentioned that. That was the second thing I mentioned. So of all these things, tennis might be the one that is the most eye-opening in terms of how we as a betting group, and I try to talk about it on a numbers game all the time. I had Brad Gilbert on earlier this week, Dan Weston, who's like a leading global analytics expert in tennis. I love betting tennis, but Americans don't seem to care about it as much. What's the other sport that people would be most surprised, either way, that they bet more than people would think or less?
Globally?
No, here.
Here in Nevada.
Shop at MGM.
People will ask about We do a ton of golf at the Aria because of our clientele. We're a big convention hotel, and
Even
you've got a lot of
non-majors?
business players in. Yeah, we book more than the other shops throughout the company, to the point where the best way I can sum up how golf is a little bit different at Aria than the other properties. A few years ago, it's an NFL Sunday, and we've got the two big 15-foot screens, and okay, which game are we going to put on this one, and what game are we going to put on this one? We ended up putting the Ryder Cup on one of the two big screens on an NFL Sunday.
Wow.
And nobody complained.
Huh.
Just because it's Aria. I don't think that works anywhere else. I don't think that would have worked anywhere else. I would say you'd be surprised how hard people bet golf. And you did bring up soccer. People love soccer, and it's
you have soccer
such
up on
a
the screen
big
all
deal.
the time.
Such a big deal internationally, and it'll be the event of the summer, even though we can't find 11 guys to qualify from this country.
Compare your World Cup handle, because you've been there for World Cups before.
I have not.
Not at Aria.
No, I've
you've
been
in other shops.
Other shops.
Yeah. World Cup handle, and you bring it up, there will not be, the USA will not be in there, so that's going to affect it. You expect this World Cup handle, therefore, to be less than it was 4 years ago because of that? And if so or if not, back then, give me a sense of what that handle is compared to one of our more standard sports. Like, what is an entire World Cup is equivalent to what? An NFL weekend? A couple NFL weekends?
NFL weekend, I would say, would be
singular.
Okay, this is me without even me doing the stat analysis.
All right.
Off the top of my head, I would compare it to an NFL weekend. I know from when I sit down and
weeping for that. No, Jorge's not weeping.
It sounds about right. I mean, but I will say I will give credit to the MGM. Jeff and I talk about it. The MGM offers a lot of different prop bets. They have a lot of different ways to wager soccer games throughout the season, not just Premier League, but Champions League and obviously the World Cup. So MGM is one of the shops that has multiple options to bet. So that's why, the clientele does go there and bet it for sure.
One NFL weekend is the entire World Cup?
I was thinking World Cup's 30 days. You got your group play.
All right.
Depends on, there's so many factors because you're looking at this year. The World Cup's being played in a country with 11 time zones.
Yeah.
Some of those games are going to be played when we're not even open.
Well, that's true. That's the thing. We're already planning here at the South Point Hotel Casino to watch World Cup games in the dead of night before we get on air.
I mean, if the World Cup's on in the middle of the daytime, and you're gonna do better.
The other sports, so like more serious bettors are betting WNBA, and as Jason Weingarten said on the air yesterday, he goes, "Make me an NC State Army line for College World Series." We like to bet these kinds of things because people are actually trying to model them and exploit them. The money spends the same. It's the same deal. It doesn't matter. You're not required to watch them if you don't want to.
Yes.
But if you model, WNBA, Vegas, by the way, everybody talks about the Vegas Golden Knights, understandably, 3 wins shy of a Stanley Cup in their expansion season. Unprecedented in any sport. But we have a women's basketball team here now.
Yeah, I went Sunday night. It was a good time.
Las Vegas Aces. Are you getting like the WNBA action? Because you're posting WNBA games, right?
Can't book the Aces because of the company's involvement with the ownership of the team. But yes, we do book the rest of the league.
And would you describe your action as a trickle? Like, what would you describe it as?
Yes, trickle, and everybody who comes to the counter usually knows what they're doing.
Yes.
It's a sharp sport. All the action is sharp action.
What's your limit on a game?
WNBA. 1,000 usually, and I had a guy the other day wanting to do several times that and couldn't understand why at a big Las Vegas hotel like the Aria he couldn't get several $1,000s on a WNBA game because it was the only several $1,000s being wagered on that game.
I'm not that liquid.
Yeah, it's the volume is the bookmaker's friend, and
if I take that from you, I'm actually betting you.
Yeah, and it's with all due respect, I said to the guy who's handicapping. A lack of volume is your friend because everybody and his brother has an opinion on the NFL. You can get an edge on the College World Series or the WNBA just because there's less sharks in the tank.
Mm-hmm. When this becomes legalized in whatever form it happens, do you anticipate, I'm asking you to speculate, I'm asking you to guess, but do you anticipate that your offerings will become even more widespread, or do you think that that's overblown? In other words, the notion that competition would spark innovation, do you think that's probably overblown. Like triple. Like I'm thinking of something that's offered offshore in some random shops. Like will a Vegas shop, not a Vegas shop, but will a property in whatever state now? Would you ever see it? Would you ever see yourself offering, I don't know, AAA games? There are some shops, in faraway places that offer that. I'm just thinking completely outside the box. Or do you think that kind of talk is like, nah, it's probably just going to be the same?
There'll probably be some, but there will be some. It's a slight exaggeration. I don't think we're going to be booking the Pacific Coast League.
Yeah.
I don't think we're going to be booking the Pacific Coast League. I think it'll open some things up, obviously, but I don't think we'll get to the point where, we're booking the Korean Baseball League, which is something that comes across my ticker.
Yeah.
On Don Best.
I always say this too, and again, the math has to be right. It's one thing that the legal part of this is somewhat over. At least stage one of the legal part is over, and we'll see. Congress might step in at some point too. I think that eventually will happen. But this only really gets interesting if one day from in the future there's a line. Let's take a Cleveland Golden State game just to use what's in front of us, or maybe even more. Let's do Vegas Golden Knights Caps. This only gets interesting if there's a line on that game in Washington that's going to be one number and a much different line in Vegas based on action, and then the wire act goes away and we're able to sort of bet all kinds of things in different spots. That's when it gets really interesting.
But how are we going to yell at people from using cell phones near the counter?
That's right. Remember those days? And you could just literally take one step back and then start using it, and they couldn't complain.
Yeah.
The evolution.
Gonna miss giving the get off my lawn speeches.
Jeff Hoos from the Aria Racing Sportsbook. Always interesting. More with Jeff and baseball picks coming up on A Numbers Game at VSiN.
It's A Numbers Game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, @BeatingTheBook and @VSiNLive.
Sign up now for Point Spread Weekly, VSiN's digital magazine dedicated to making you a better handicapper. It's available at no charge if you choose our free 1-week trial. This week's cover story is on the amazing Vegas Golden Knights, what you need to know before they play the Capitals in the Stanley Cup Finals. And it's always football season at Point Spread Weekly. Matt Euman sizes up the Heisman race and looks for best bets on the Week 1 college lines. We'll also handicap this week's MLB, PGA, NASCAR, UFC, WNBA, and Arena League action. Sign up now for your free trial of Point Spread Weekly at VSiN.com/subscribe. You wake up in the morning and what do you need first? Mitch and Paulie, of course, followed quickly by your morning coffee. Well, wait till you see what we have for you in the VSiN store. That's right. VSiN coffee mugs are now available at VSiN.com/store. Some of your favorite VSiN slogans make their way onto what's sure to become your favorite mug. There's cash and tickets is what it's all about. Vegas flu, puck yeah. It's not under till it's over. And of course, follow the money. They're all at VSiN.com/store. And no judgment if you use them for something stronger than coffee.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
How much was that, Jimmy?
50,000 to win 500,000.
That's one of our friends from Houston, isn't it? I think that gentleman strolled through here during the baseball championships.
He came in this morning and
he's a wonderful guy. I think what you have to sweat out in this situation is tonight's game. Because if he waited until after tonight, okay, and let's say the Rockets win, that number would change dramatically, okay? So and listen, he's got a lot. He's a very good bettor. I mean, we know from the World Series. I mean, this fellow knows what he's doing.
Where John Mara's hoping, I just spoke to him, the Giants co-owner, and he said that, look, what we're trying to do is just make sure that all the bets are even across the board. And when I say even, like the types of bets that are being offered. What he's concerned about is a couple things. Number one, different states offering different types of props, things like that, rather than just, having a uniform type of bet that can be made through these states. The other thing he worries about is feeding addiction. But honestly, he just says that, are we going to be creating more problems for people that have, struggles with gambling?
Buddy of mine calls me. I made a $1 parlay, he tells me, to win $9,477. So when I said to him, I said, wait for Game 5 to happen between the Celtics and the Cavaliers. Wait for that game to happen. If the Celtics win, you still do nothing. We'll take this one event at a time. If the Celtics win tonight, you still don't do anything. But if the Cavaliers win Game 5, then you simply bet the Cavaliers on the money line in Game 6.
I kind of like the veiled references. It's kind of funny. Keeps everything kind of in an entertainment, lackadaisical, feeling around it a little bit. If you start talking about, oh, that one's going to cover the spread, or if they start getting real, in depth on sports betting stuff during broadcast, that'll change things. I'm not sure that's the best way to go. I just hope when people start betting, and there will be some new people that start betting, they completely look at this as a recreation. They should not be looking at this as a profession. And that's kind of how I hope the media talks about this.
Back to a numbers game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
Back on a numbers game. I am out starting tomorrow and for next week. Jorge, you're here tomorrow? I am out. It's not a vacation. I'm just sort of out. I have it in my contract that I cannot appear in Vegas under the June sun of Vegas, or I melt.
It's a good deal.
Next week on the show, though, Sam Panayanovic will be here all week on a numbers game, filling in, and he will have multiple co-hosts, Brady Cannon, who you know as our Point Spread Weekly golf expert. He will be in with Sam for a couple days. Josh Towers, of course, will be in with Sam, and as will Patrick Everson from Covers. Patrick Everson, kind enough to join us here at VSiN next week during a numbers game, 7 to 9 Pacific, 10 to noon Eastern. Okay, Jorge, you want to talk international sports. What's going on? Usain Bolt lost a gold medal?
Yeah, couple of news nuggets from today. Usain Bolt, he won the gold medals at 2008, 2012, and 2016 in the 100, 200, and the 4x100. But one of his teammates in the 4x100 in 2008 got busted for steroids a couple of years ago, and they took the gold medal away, and now the Court of Arbitration upheld that ruling, so Usain Bolt's record of a perfect 9 gold medals in 3 Olympic Games is not anymore.
The people who bet on that relay, do they have to give their money back?
No.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know.
But something that does impact odds, Peru's captain, Paulo Guerrero, who was suspended for the World Cup because of a metabolite in the system, the Court of Arbitration ruled, the court in Switzerland ruled that he can play at the World Cup. And that was in part due to the captains for the teams that he's going up against. France's Hugo Lloris, Australia's Miles Jedinak, and Denmark's Simon Kjaer. They all wrote letters to the arbitrators saying, hey, let this guy play at the World Cup. Let his suspension happen after the World Cup. So that was interesting. Peru is 10 to 1 to win the group. France is the favorite, minus 450, according to our friends at William Hill. I don't think that impacts it much, but something to watch for. And Peru could qualify from the group. So if you're looking at teams to qualify from the group, Peru's leading goal scorer is back, so that could impact it. And also earlier today, Zinedine Zidane, like you mentioned, left Real Madrid after being the manager for the club for 2.5 years, where he won the Champions League 3 years in a row.
Was that unexpected? I know Cristiano Ronaldo leaving is sort of expected.
Yeah, that was definitely unexpected. He called the president of the club yesterday and said, you know what, my time's done. And he admitted flat out, I don't think I can win with this team. He played for Real Madrid when he was a player. He said the same thing. If I can't win with this team, I should walk away. So he feels like he can't do it anymore. As in, Ronaldo has said he's not going to come back to the team. Now he's couched it. He said, I love playing at Real. Let's see what happens. Gareth Bale has said he probably won't stay at the team because he didn't get a lot of playing time this summer. So a lot of changes coming to Real Madrid. So I'm sure that'll impact the market when the Champions League numbers come out later this summer.
Best part of that was when you said our friends at William Hill. Speak for yourself, Jorge. I'm not sure I can call myself that anymore. Just want to point that out. Just clarification. World Cup futures. Give me the top futures plays here. World Cup. I know you love the chalk. You love Germany. Belgium.
Sure do. Germany is still the favorite at minus 350. Give me a quick second. Who are you betting, by the way? Have you decided who you're going to bet the World Cup yet?
I have not, actually.
Why not? The World Cup's only 2 weeks away. 2 weeks from today, my friend.
Somebody might be checked out and is going to Game 3 in D.C. of the Stanley Cup Finals. Somebody might not have a World Cup opinion of any real import right now.
And let me correct myself. I'm sorry. Germany is now plus 250 here at the South Point.
Go.
Brazil 3-1. France 9-2. Spain 7-1. I'm sorry, Argentina 6-1. Spain 7-1.
What's Croatia?
Croatia is 35-1.
Okay, Croatia.
Belgium 9-1.
Croatia is in the parlance of the great ladies love Cool James, the sneaky freaky brother sneaking in from the rear. That is what Croatia is. 35-1.
Strong reference.
Thank you.
Love that Croatia kit. Looks like a Bob's Big Boy.
The red and white checkered?
Yeah, I have. A player gave one to me as a gift,
Mhm.
and it's fantastic. I'm not allowed to wear it out of the house because it's just garish, but I love it.
Garish. Good word. Croatia's in what group, Jorge? There is no group of death this year. There's no United States, there's no Netherlands, there's no Italy, and there is therefore, with fewer countries that you would expect to be there, there is nothing called the group of death. Croatia, what group are they in? Georgie Bueno.
They are in the group with Argentina, Nigeria, and Iceland.
So Argentina is the favorite, I imagine.
Sure are, yes, sir.
Yeah. Got a number for me or no? Georgie Bueno, we're doing a live show, for God's sakes. Jorge, who asked right after we talked about the largest margin in the Cavs Warriors game, he said, hey, we haven't talked about the largest margin in the Cavs Warriors game. I think we're already on vacation, Jorge, for God's sakes.
Argentina is the favorite, according to our friends at MGM.
There you go.
Minus 220. Croatia plus 200 to win the group. Nigeria 10-1 and Iceland 12-1 to win the group at MGM.
Iceland only 12-1 to win the group.
Yeah.
Could you give us a little more bang for a buck on that? Jeff, could you make something happen there?
I'll make a call right after we get off the air.
Listen, they're crowd favorites. I'm sure they've taken a lot of Icelandic money.
I just want to point this out, by the way,
Yeah.
for people who are like, "Hey, you're such good friends with Jay Rude. Maybe get him on and tell us some MGM legalization gossip." So I texted Jay while we're on the air. I said, "Jeff is in with me. Want to come on by phone and reveal some MGM goods?" And his response to me was, "I'm on a call. Leave me alone." I love it. Coming back, baseball picks. Bad beats yesterday. Not really bad beats. It's just baseball. Didn't work out for us. We set ourselves up for a victory, but the Cardinals couldn't execute. And then the Cardinals executed their way out of they put themselves in a shift, and we couldn't even get the push. We lost our first 5 bet yesterday. Mike Lamborn's going to try to bounce back. He's got a pick. Next, baseball right here on a numbers game at VSiN.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, at Beating the Book and at VSiNLive.
The best way to watch our shows? It's a no-brainer. The VSiN app. With the VSiN app, you can watch our shows live or on replay. You can even play them in the background while you use other apps. The VSiN app also has live updating odds, the latest news from VSiN's reporters and odds makers, and even a customizable homepage by sport. More details at vsin.com/app. That's vsin.com/app. The VSiN app, powered by our friends at AmericanEagle.com in the Apple and Google Play app stores right now.
Hey guys, by now you had to have heard of winnersandwhiners.com, the site that offers predictions on every game on the board every day for free. Well, if you can appreciate the value that can be found in totals, winnersandwhiners.com now has analysis and predictions on the key over-under value plays of the day, including their daily overachiever, which identifies the likely highest scoring game of the day. And they're offering all this for free. Just go to winnersandwhiners.com and click the link that says Become an Insider. That's winnersandwhiners.com.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what
Whether
you
it's
missed.
SportsCenter or whether it's NFL pregames for our network or the others, we'll treat that hour from 12 to 1 Eastern, much like, you and the Greek back in the day. I think it'll be above board. I think people will just be far more willing to discuss this the way certainly you have and we've done here. I think more people will just be at the party. And you and I have always felt the same way, Brent. Look, this is something everyone's doing, so let's just talk about it like adults. And I think now everybody is going to be much more willing to do so now that the Supreme Court finally took down what I thought was just an archaic law.
And there's an issue with that in New Jersey as well, in the current led bill, and they're going to try to amend this, I think. But the current bill says that they cannot, a sports franchise owner cannot own a casino sports book. And Fertitta's a golden nugget up there, so they would not be allowed to open a sports book, which is something, that have been planning to rev up and get this going in New Jersey, and all of a sudden they stick this stipulation in that would prevent some of the owners that have interest in franchises. So I think they're going to amend that and kind of follow the Nevada model where they just won't be allowed to take wagers on their respective teams.
The Vegas Golden Knights will have home ice in the series, and the Vegas Golden Knights, largely as a result of that, and the fact that here in Vegas, the futures liability on the Vegas Golden Knights is, according to Johnny Avello over at the Win, if the Knights are to win the Stanley Cup, he estimates that citywide, sportsbooks wide, it's about a loss of anywhere between $5 and $10 million in the futures market. So that does inform why this price is what this price is. And here at the South Point Hotel Casino, as of moments ago before the show, the Golden Knights were minus 160. Minus 160 on the series.
It's come out that they're trying to actively recruit some of these universities to kind of get on their side and say, hey, you're going to get a cut of this if we can go ahead and lobby and get these integrity fees. You'll get a cut of it.
NCAA always has enough optics problems with everything else they have going on. Taking a direct cut of sports betting money is maybe not the best idea. So what the leagues are trying to do are saying, hey, NCAA doesn't want it. We can just write into the bills that colleges will get it. I think I think the colleges do see they're going to have increased compliance costs. They see this as something they're going to have to deal with more than they are right now, and they probably see that money as a cut.
Back to a numbers game with your host, Gil Alexander, broadcasting live from our VSiN studios in Las Vegas.
Back on a numbers game here at VSiN. John Brown from Behind the Glass was outside of the studio and got a ticket from somebody who's a fan of the show. Didn't get his name, though. And he said, give this to Gil. So this gentleman, we don't have his name, just gave me a $10 futures ticket on the Tennessee Vols to win the 2019 College Football Championship, meaning next season, at 200 to 1, would pay $2,000.
That's fantastic. You have fans like that. It's just...
Please, I encourage every fan to come in and give me a $10 ticket on random college football teams, and eventually one of these will hit. That's very, very kind of him. Now, if this hits in some way, I get it. It probably won't. But if it does, or if I hedge out of this, like, how do we get some money to him? We can't do it. It'd be like, who's got the glass slipper kind of thing.
Exactly.
Get Clay Travis on the phone. I'll sell it to him right now for $500. I'm kidding. Big Tennessee fan. No, that's very kind of him. So thank you for that. Whoever you are, thank you. I saw you out the window. Mike Lamborn, tough 5-inning play yesterday in the Cardinals-Brewers game. Didn't work out for us in the 5th inning. Mike, what you got today? Baseball slate.
What's up, Gil? Look, pretty tough day. I reran the model, bet about 4 overnight, reran the model in the morning. Not a lot to still get excited about right now. The one that I can talk about, Texas-Seattle, looking at the under here, Mike Minor, Wade LeBlanc, not exactly big-name pitchers, but we have them rated overall about average moving forward, and a tough place to hit both left-handers and right-handers there in Seattle, and a bit of an under-umpire to Gabe Morales. He is 5-3 to the over this year, but looking at a little bit of more long-term numbers for him, we have him about 5% towards the under. So we have this projected 7.2 runs, going to play the under 8, minus 125.
Under 8, minus 125. Mariners, 335 weighted on base against lefties. They're a top 10 team versus lefties. And again, it's 2 lefty starters. Minor going for the Rangers, LeBlanc going for the Mariners. You're going under 8. Under 8, minus 125 is the play. There's some 7.5s out there, by the way, which are minus 105s. You like the 8, though. You like getting that extra half run, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's pretty close. You look at the long-term win probability of that, a little bit less juice when you're paying for the 7.5. It equates to about even. So it kind of, whichever one you prefer, lay a little bit of less juice and win more often, or I guess push in this case. Or you can win a little bit more when you do take that less juice. It breaks that down to about even, though.
Let me ask you about this game before you go, Mike. Philadelphia is at the Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw back on the hill today. This opened at minus 215. It is now minus 160. This has moved 55 cents from the overnight. It's Kershaw against Nola. Kershaw and the Dodgers at minus 160. What was your number here?
Our number is minus 180. It's hard to expect Kershaw to be perfect coming off that disabled list. You don't really know what you're going to get. He could be good, but it's hard to really be confident in that first start back.
And Kershaw right now, minus 165 here at the South Point Hotel Casino, but minus 160 consensus in that one. Do you get more just by virtue of the fact that Kershaw is pitching? Do you get more action than if any other pitcher is pitching, or does that have no bearing whatsoever?
It does. Your marquee pitchers generate a little more.
Kershaw specifically the most?
Handle, yes. Dodgers are a bit of an outlier because they're not on TV in this part of the world, and that
don't get me started.
I don't think that helps.
Yeah.
But yes.
They are the problem with the Dodgers. Vegas, for those who what Jeff is referring to, Vegas is this strange home location for like not six, but I think 5 different teams, right? Dodgers, Padres, Diamondbacks, Giants,
and
and
Bay Area teams.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we're suburban Bay Area.
That's
You're
right.
10 hours away.
We kind of are. But yeah, so on any given night, the Dodgers are not on TV, or any of those teams are not on TV. And in fact, when Rich Hill was throwing his his El Perfecto last year, or his no-hitter. I can't remember what it was. He took it into the late innings, and then Josh
MLB
Harrison,
cut in.
MLB cut in.
Yes.
We didn't get to see that game until right before Josh Harrison hit a solo to break Dodgers backers' hearts and Rich Hill's heart. So that's the plight of Vegas baseball fans, and so that does mute the Dodgers bets a little.
A bit, yeah. Dodgers had fans here for 50 years, and when they launched their own cable network with Time Warner, that hasn't carried over to include Vegas yet.
Jorge?
Just letting you know, MGM has it at minus 170 for the Dodgers.
Minus 170. There you go, Jeff. Always juicing it more, man.
Clayton Kershaw.
Oh, man. Mike, thank you. Appreciate it. Under on Texas, Seattle, under 8. That's your play of the day. Thank you, man.
All right, thanks, Gil.
Always check out Mike on Twitter, at MetricsMike, at Clear Data Sports. That's where he comes from. Thanks to Preston Johnson for hanging out with us the first hour. Thanks earlier in the week to Brad Gilbert, Todd Wright, all of our great guests on the show. Todd Wright will try to be here in studio next week. No, the week after next when I'm back. So we hope to have Todd Wright in. But Brad Gilbert wants the number 4 tennis player in the world, kind of him to come on the show as well to talk Warriors just as much as he talked tennis with us.
Oakland guy, right?
Oakland guy, exactly. And on the leaflet, you know what I mean. Jeff Hoos, race and sportsbook manager over the RA. Thank you, Jeff, as always, for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Always.
Again, I'm on break. Sam Panayotovich in for me tomorrow. If you missed Mitch and Paulie, get another shot at him right now. Follow the money right here at VSiN. Enjoy.
It's a numbers game, live from the tip of the strip in Las Vegas. Get your fill of numbers even after the show is over by following the crew on Twitter, at Beating the Book and at VSiNLive.
Make VSiN your source for news on the future of sports betting. We'll tell you what the Supreme Court's historic ruling could mean to you, not just now, but in the weeks and months ahead. Stay tuned to VSiN because the court's announcement is just the beginning in this new, enlightened era. You'll hear from the movers and shakers of the industry, find out what they have to say about the future of betting in your state and beyond. That's VSiN, changing the way you watch sports. You wake up in the morning and what do you need first? Mitch and Paulie, of course, followed quickly by your morning coffee. Well, wait till you see what we have for you in the VSiN store. That's right. VSiN coffee mugs are now available at VSiN.com/store. Some of your favorite VSiN slogans make their way onto what's sure to become your favorite mug. There's cash and tickets is what it's all about. Vegas flu, puck yeah. It's not under till it's over. And of course, follow the money. They're all at VSiN.com/store. And no judgment if you use them for something stronger than coffee.
If you didn't catch VSiN last week, here's some of what you missed.
How much was that, Jimmy?
50,000 to win 500,000.
That's one of our friends from Houston, isn't it? I think that gentleman strolled through here during the baseball championships.
He came in this morning and he
He's a wonderful guy. I think what you have to sweat out in this situation is tonight's game. Because if he waited until after tonight, okay, and let's say the Rockets win, that number would change